government and the opposition.
I want to bring in the Shadow Minister for the NDIS, Melissa McIntosh. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Is he right? No reason to believe that the two are linked or there'll be a delay?
I've worked, as the Minister said, quite closely together and in good faith because the NDIS budget is out of control and we want to get it right. But it's very important that we get it right for the people that rely on the NDIS. They have a severe permanent disability and their families. And that's why I push really hard on behalf of the Coalition to get a Senate inquiry. And we've secured 3 days. And this is a chance for the public to have their say and to share their stories. And certainly as a portfolio holder, I have no intention of changing that unless we came to an agreement to extend it. But that's not on the cards right now.
OK, so a quick inquiry just to ventilate some of the concerns.
Yeah, there's some really reasonable concerns, and I share those concerns as well. And this when it comes to participants. So there's a lot of fraud in the system, tightening that up. The government's not doing enough on that. We had a division in the House of Representatives today on an amendment I moved, and it was supported by all of the crossbench, including One Nation and all the Teals. So they all came to our side because it is very clear that the government is not tackling the fraud, the rorting, the misuse, the bad actors within the NDIS, but they are going after the participants. And if you're going after the participants and trying to reduce numbers, you need to ensure that they do not fall through the cracks on the other side. And there's concerns around whether the states are willing to pick up some of this responsibility, which they will need to do. And we also need to ensure that this is not just a cost-shifting exercise, moving from the NDIS budget to the health budget, and taxpayers still need to pay.
OK, well, ultimately, it's kind of inevitably going to be a bit about cost shifting, isn't it? Because it's not as if some of these people don't need supports.
Well, that's absolutely right. But the problem here is there's no detail. I would love to see the modelling behind all of the decision-making from the government. I think there's an expectation that we should see all of that to get a better understanding and to ensure that this is going to work. The government committed to reducing their growth target and had a growth target of 8%, 10%, 8%, 5%, now going to 2%, and they haven't even achieved 10%. It's over 11% right now. So there are big questions around the achievability and my concerns with the participants because they are really anxious right now. Right, thousands of them are coming through my office, through emails, phone calls. I'm sure every MP across the country is hearing the same thing.
The inquiry into the government's tax changes, the Greens have supported a kind of limited one. It will report on June 22. Is that long enough?
Well, we found out today there was a bit of a bungle in the system, and the tax changes were always going to go into an inquiry. Once again, the government isn't as transparent as it makes out to be to the Australian people. It promised transparency. I think it won its first election against the Coalition, saying we need more transparency in our governments, and they're doing everything but being transparent, either not having inquiries or trying to rush them through. We would like to have a longer inquiry on this. Small businesses across the country are up in arms. Tradies in my community are really worried. They've worked really hard, like blood, sweat and tears to build their business, and they're concerned about their business in the future, whether they're going to be able to continue to support their families or pass their small business on to the next generation.
It won't affect their ongoing business, though. It's about, obviously, when you sell your business, you know, and 90% of those small businesses will be covered. The Prime Minister spoke to me earlier. He's open to looking at all of the exemptions. They're in a consultation. Isn't it good that they're consulting with business?
The government loves to consult after the fact. And with the NDIS, they didn't consult with anyone on the NDIS. Any of the participants made the big announcement, we'll consult with you after. Same with the tax changes. Made these big announcements, everyone was quite shocked, we'll consult with you after. That's not consultation at all. And if the Prime Minister made commitments to you here on your program, well, let's see them come true, because every commitment he's made to the Australian people, including at the last election, has been a broken promise.
Well, I have to go to that because I asked him about calling an election, which the Nationals called for today. He said that, you know, that we have a constitution, we have an election every 3 years. I mean, that's true, right? The system, we can't have elections every time people disagree with the policy.
Yeah, but I think we need to have belief in the system, and people are starting to not have belief in the system and in our politicians, because it's not okay to make a commitment and a promise multiple times to Australian people, like the $275 back on your energy bill, and then just after the election go, oh, yeah, like life's changed, things have moved on, there's global things going on, oh, this is for the best, because then people don't believe you. It's like the boy who cried wolf. people will stop believing in our governments, in our institutions, and that's what we're seeing right now, the fragmentation of politics in this country.
I'm going to ask a very impolite question, but you know that I mean it politely. If there was an election now, you could lose your seat. If you look at some of the polling, do you really want an election right now?
Well, I don't think the Australian people want an election right now. I think they're fed up with politicians, and I feel that when I'm out and about in the public. I certainly don't want an election. I've got a lot of things to fight for in this term for my community that haven't been delivered.
Yeah, you don't really want an election right now, do you?
Well, does anyone want an election right now? I reckon if we did a poll across the country...
I suspect that's right.
Maybe, I don't think so. I think a lot of people like to stick it to this government, but whether that's an election, I think that's a bit much. Let's just hold the government to account, and then when we get to the next election, the Australian people will have an opportunity to boot them out.
OK. I asked the Prime Minister about a policy that you have also talked about, and that's changing the definition of what a woman is in the Sex Discrimination Act. He said he thinks it's a culture war, he doesn't have time to... It's not a priority of his, clearly. And he also said and outlined all of the work he's doing around violence against women, including the consultation for the next phase of eliminating violence against women. It's true that most violence against women operates in the home, isn't it? I mean, that's where violence against women happens.
I found it really interesting that the Prime Minister just told about 13 million women and girls that their rights are merely a cultural war. This is about women's rights and women that do care about this issue around biological sex and women and the Sex Discrimination Act. He just basically go away. This is not a priority for me. And I think Australian women would have every right to be pretty angry at this Prime Minister for his reaction, because he's not even engaging in the
Why
issue.
should he prioritise it, though? Why would it be a priority for the Prime Minister?
Well, I asked people in just my own social media if they care about this issue, and I don't have a reach of millions. I've got about 22,000 on my Facebook, and within a day or two, I had about 2,000 responses from people, and it wasn't just a tick a box. They could say what they cared about and why they cared about an issue of changing the Sex Discrimination Act to restore what a biological male and a biological woman is. And this is not about anti-transgender people. This is clearly about women's safety, and I'm particularly concerned around men that, they do horrific crimes and then they go into a woman's prison because they say they're a woman. So there's some serious issues around this. So if women of Australia are starting to build up in force, then the Prime Minister, as I said, should be listening to over 50% of the population. And on that,
not all of the 50% of the population agrees on that.
That's fair enough, but not all the population agree on everything. And the Prime Minister said he hadn't even heard about what the coalition's policy was on this. Angus Taylor, the opposition leader, wrote to the Prime Minister about a week ago. So I don't know if he's lying again to the Australian public or he just hasn't seen Angus's letter.
I didn't ask about the letter, but I take your point. Thank you so much.